Somewhere in California right now, a human hand is reaching into a vine, cupping a cluster of grapes the size of a fist, and deciding, in about 1 second, whether it's good enough to sell. Multiply that motion by roughly 6 billion clusters a year. That's not an exaggeration. It's the closest estimate for how many individual decisions go into harvesting 5.9 million tons of grapes by hand every single season, almost entirely in one state. No robot did that. No AI did that. A person did, 95,000 of them, for as little as $18 an hour. And in 2026, for the first time in modern American farming, that entire system is starting to break. Here's the number that should stop you. Grapes have the largest bearing acreage of any non-citrus fruit crop in the United States. More than 880,000 acres, almost entirely concentrated on the West Coast, and overwhelmingly in California. And yet, despite being one of the most valuable crops in American agriculture, part of a non-citrus fruit sector worth $19 billion a year, the grape harvest still depends almost entirely on the same tool humanity has used for 6,000 years, the human hand. Why? Because a grape is not a potato. You can't just knock it off the vine. Table grapes especially have to be assessed cluster by cluster, cut with precision, and roughly 30% of what's picked gets discarded on the spot to protect quality. That kind of judgment call, soft enough not to bruise the fruit, fast enough to be profitable, has, until very recently, been something only a trained human hand could do. So here's the uncomfortable question this video is going to answer. What happens to a $5 billion industry when the people who do that job start disappearing? Let's rewind and understand the scale of what we're actually talking about. In a peak year, California alone has produced close to 5.9 million tons of grapes, generating roughly $5.2 billion in value, and pulling in about 95,000 seasonal workers during the height of harvest. More recently, USDA's own 2025 numbers put total U.S. grape production at 5.2 million tons, still enormous, but down 3.4% from the year before, with bearing acreage also shrinking nearly 4%. Now here's the twist most people don't know. Most of that tonnage isn't the grapes you're picturing. 83% of the U.S. grape crop goes to processing. Wine, juice, raisins, not the produce aisle. Only a slice becomes the fresh table grapes stacked in your grocery store. Every one of those categories has its own harvest window, its own labor demand, its own margin for error. Wine grapes tolerate a rougher, faster harvest because they're getting crushed anyway. Table grapes do not. They are, quite literally, a luxury product built on manual dexterity, which is exactly why California's table grape sector has resisted full mechanization for decades, even as other crops modernized around it. But the workforce underneath all of it has always been fragile. And in the last 18 months, that fragility became a full-blown crisis. To understand the labor side of this story, you need to understand a single visa category, H-2A. It's the program that lets American farms legally import temporary foreign workers, mostly from Mexico, when they can't find enough domestic labor. And its growth over the last decade has been staggering. From roughly 63,000 certified positions nationwide in 2012 to nearly 400,000 by 2025. That growth wasn't a choice, it was a symptom. Roughly half of all U.S. crop farm workers today are working without legal authorization, and that number has been sitting there, unresolved, for over 2 decades. Then came 2025 and 2026. immigration enforcement intensified sharply, and even federal officials admitted the fallout in writing. The U.S. Department of Labor itself stated in a regulatory filing that immigration raids had made finding agricultural workers measurably harder, warning that the near-total halt of new arrivals, combined with an insufficient legal workforce, was disrupting production costs and threatening the stability of the food supply. At the same time, a legal fight broke out over what H-2A workers should even be paid. A proposed federal rule would have reclassified 92% of farm workers as unskilled, potentially dropping their minimum wage to around $13.70 an hour, down from an average of $17.43. In California, where the adverse effect wage rate for H-2A labor sits at $19.97 an hour, among the highest minimums in the country, farm worker unions took the fight to federal court. So picture the position California grape growers are in right now. Their harvest window is measured in days, not weeks. Grapes don't wait. Their labor pool is shrinking due to enforcement actions. Their legal labor costs are rising and being litigated in real time. And the crop itself is one of the most physically delicate, hand-dependent harvests in all of American agriculture. This is the exact condition under which industries either collapse or get automated. This is where the story turns. Because while lawmakers argue over visas, engineers have quietly been building the alternative. The global vineyard robotics market was valued at around $400 million in 2025, and it's projected to hit $1.7 billion by 2035, growing at over 15% a year. By 2026, more than 28,000 vineyard robots are expected to be operating worldwide, with autonomous harvesting and spraying machines making up nearly half of all deployments. Right now, Europe leads this shift. France, Italy, and Spain account for over 60% of global installations, driven by the exact same labor pressures hitting California. But the US and Australia are the fastest growing markets, both expanding robotic adoption at more than 30% annually. So what does one of these machines actually look like in the field? Take the Slope Helper, a Slovenian-built grape-picking attachment that harvests whole clusters without shaking the vine, preserving fruit integrity on terrain too steep for a standard tractor, and doing most vineyard jobs autonomously. Or look at what engineers at Queen Mary University of London and a robotics company called Extend Robotics have built. A harvesting arm with AI-powered visual sensors that assess a grape's ripeness by estimating internal sugar levels, and pressure-sensitive fingers calibrated to pick fruit without bruising it. Today, it's still operated remotely through a VR headset. The goal is full autonomy. Machines that could theoretically harvest around the clock, run by human operators working in shifts across different time zones. Then there's the quieter, less glamorous end of automation. Robots that don't pick grapes at all, but prune them. A four-legged robot called Vinum, built on a quadruped platform, is being trained to navigate vineyard rows autonomously and perform the single most labor-intensive task in a vine's yearly cycle: winter pruning. Across the board, researchers are converging on the same justification: labor shortages, rising costs, and a shrinking pipeline of young farmers willing to do this work. One recent peer-reviewed review of orchard and vineyard robotics put it bluntly: the decline of young farmers and the volatility of manual labor supply are now treated as design constraints, the same way weather or soil chemistry would be. And the economics are becoming hard to ignore. Precision viticulture technology, sensors and AI systems that monitor vine health, water stress, and ripeness in real time is already improving yield efficiency by 20 to 25% in the vineyards using it. Labor cost reduction from robotic adoption is estimated at up to 35%. This isn't a future concept. It's happening on working vineyards right now, while the labor debate in Washington is still being fought in courtrooms. So where does this leave the 95,000 people who show up every harvest season? Here's the honest answer. Nobody is claiming robots will fully replace human grape pickers in the next 5 years. Table grapes are still too delicate, too variable, too dependent on human judgment for full automation today. Even the most advanced systems, like Extend Robotics Harvester, are still human-operated, just remotely. But that's exactly why this moment matters. We're watching the earliest phase of a transition that happened to nearly every other major crop decades ago: wheat, corn, cotton, where mechanization didn't happen because farmers wanted fewer workers. It happened because the workforce became unreliable enough or expensive enough that the technology became the safer bet. Grapes were one of the last major U.S. crops still resisting that shift. 2025 and 2026 may be the years that resistance broke, not because of a breakthrough in robotics, but because of a breakdown in the labor system that used to make automation unnecessary. If that pattern holds, the next decade of California viticulture won't look like all human harvests or all robot harvests. It'll look like something in between. Precision sensors doing the monitoring, semi-autonomous machines doing the pruning and spraying, and human hands still doing the final delicate cut on the fruit that ends up in your grocery cart. At least for now. So the next time you eat a grape or pour a glass of wine, remember it probably passed through more human hands than almost anything else on your plate. For now. Because somewhere between a courtroom fighting over a $13.70 minimum wage and a lab in London teaching a robot to feel a grape's ripeness through pressure sensors, American farming is quietly deciding what harvest looks like for the next generation. The grapes aren't the story here. The hands are. And they're being replaced by something that doesn't get tired, doesn't need a visa, and never asks for a raise. If you want to see what's coming next in agtech, the machine's already replacing human labor in almonds, strawberries, and lettuce fields. That's exactly what we're breaking down next on Beyond Harvest. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.